About the committee, Dan Jennings has tendered his resignation. Dan has a number of other priorities going on in his life right now. He's very, very busy. So we will be short of one person. And I would expect that council will appoint a replacement sometime in the fall. So it would be, he has submitted his resignation formally. I think it would be good. It's not really our task to accept it, but I think it would be good if we were able to pass a resolution to accept his resignation. And Dan has talked to him. He understands he'd be welcome back at the committee at some future point, when circumstances change. But I think it would be good if the committee passed a resolution thanking him for his efforts. I think that would be true. Derek?
I would like to, because you're gonna need a motion on the floor, right?
Sorry?
Are you gonna need a motion?
Yes, oh yeah, we will need a mover in a second.
Okay, so I'll be the mover, and then you somebody do the second.
Okay. Moved by Derek and seconded by Craig, that we thank Dan Jennings, and Dan can make the wording much better than I can, I'm sure, but that we thank Dan Jennings for his service on the committee and wish him well with his future endeavor.
Yeah.
Fair enough? Fair enough. And feel free to move on that. Okay, we just kind of wing that.
Do we have to nominate a new chair for the
For the site plan committee,
right?
we're going to talk about that. It's on the agenda. We're coming up on that. Yeah, okay. We do have to do something about the site plan committee because Dan was the chair of that committee. Can I also get a mover and a seconder? I guess we should vote. Are we going to vote to thank Dan? What do you think? Is everybody in favor of that?
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. And we also have the minutes from our last meeting. I do see one inconsistency, and that is the Dree was listed as not being in attendance, but she also seconded the approval of the minutes. So we kind of need to sort that out a little bit. But can I get a mover and a seconder for the minutes of our April 12th meeting?
I'll move.
Thank
I'll
you.
second her.
Thank you. Subject to clarification on Dree's attendance.
Yeah, I'll take that on. I'll watch the meeting and I'll figure that out.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, moving on. We have to ask this question. Does anyone have a conflict of interest on any matter that is on the agenda? Just to clarify, it's only a conflict of interest if you or a member of your immediate family have a financial gain.
In which financial gain, meaning,
That's,
sorry, okay, on a particular subject,
yes,
okay. Like I seen the Finnish restaurant,
right.
my son-in-law is CEO,
I do not believe that would.
I think that's what he is.
Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. I don't believe that creates a conflict for you.
Okay,
No.
just so it's
It's
clear.
good that you declare it, but I mean, we're not making a hard and fast decision on whether or not that project goes ahead. We're just providing the place for those people who are. So.
I think it would be, but then
Just in case.
Yeah.
That's good.
and then have everything blow up
That's
because of one minor.
Just make a note here to say, know somebody at finished restaurant. Yeah, okay, that's all it's up for.
What if I get there?
Okay, so since no one has any conflicts of interest, that was a really good question. Let's continue with our new business. First thing was traffic and pedestrian concerns. This came from a discussion on sidewalk plowing. Sandra, I know you and Carrie talked about this, wanted to put forward a resolution. It's on the agenda. Did you want to address that at all?
Yeah, and if I may say, I spoke with in this law for her input. And as a counselor, I received many phone calls from individuals that have difficulty walking and other challenges. And so they call me to say, our sidewalks not plowed again. And so I call Public Works and say, please, can you do the sidewalk? And sometimes they say, sorry, We can't because we put our plan together usually in October. And then I ask, pretty please, and sometimes they'll go for a special, situation. But we've been educated over and over again that October is when we have to encourage our counselors or constituents to contact Public Works to have them consider a particular sidewalk that may need some plowing in the winter. So I was speaking with, Terry and Diane. I thought, hypothetically, what happens if we as a committee identify way in advance particular areas in the city that we know should be definitely plowed because of, different needs. And being the accessibility committee, I think that we should basically identify areas. And as a committee, put forward a list to Public Works way in advance so that these particular troubled areas can get on their list sooner than later. I hope I explained myself well enough.
Yeah, I get that, but is it not a given example, Pine Street by McNabb, that those streets are plowed? But you would think it would be a given, and they plow them sorta.
Well, I just think it's something that wouldn't hurt. If I may say, I mean, yes, main corridors are usually plowed. But sometimes I just don't want to make assumptions either. Maybe hypothetically, somewhere in the community, there could be a new, I'm just making this up, but let's say hypothetically a new group, a club or something where they just started to meet, and maybe hypothetically speed adaptability. I'm just using that. And maybe there's a new area in the community where you meet. And that particular sidewalk has never been plowed before, but now it should be plowed. And that should be a red flag for Public Works to make sure it's on their master plan. I don't know if that's a good example or not, but.
No, I'm on where am I? Allard.
Yeah.
But the building right across is also part of McDaniels and Williams.
Yeah,
So they're there. So you can go from Allard right through to Pine.
yeah,
Those people plow out that whole area and they leave 2 and 3 feet deep ridges after the snowplow has gone by, the sidewalk plow.
okay,
So there we are, and I've had to help several people get over the hump. They're trying to bring their groceries and they're
yeah,
not quite stable, neither am I. And here, 2 of us are trying to get over this.
yeah,
Is there someone I could call in and say, you know what, like, I know it's not the city's fault, they did the sidewalk that day,
yeah,
but these people shouldn't be allowed to do that.
yeah. So are you saying that the city sidewalk plow
Had already gone through,
and created that ridge?
no, he didn't, the people that plowed, McDaniels.
Oh, private contractor.
The
Yeah.
contractors.
That's a little bit different than what I'm talking about.
Yes, I realize, but that wasn't the same, like, again, 3 winters there, Pine Street has been, sort of, just hit and miss, and who cares?
Yeah,
This year, I have to say, they did a great job, all the way right down to here,
yeah.
really good.
I feel that if it's a private contractor that has been hired and they left that mess,
Right.
that private contractor should go back and clean up that mess.
Right, and who would I as a citizen ask or go to?
To the private contractor.
Have to go
Well,
to
I think you have a couple of choices. One would be to contact us. Through Diane. No, I say us, it's really her.
They're on this matter.
Yeah,
But I think maybe the route to go would be to contact, like Williams and McDaniel has a senior manager here in town.
Yes.
Would be to contact that person, because they're the ones that are putting the contractors. And if it's creating a problem for you, it's probably creating a problem for all of their tenants as well.
Well,
Now, we can't enforce that, but we can bring it to his attention
okay,
and see if he then deals, it's up to him to deal with the contractor.
like, I'm lucky enough that I don't need the walker, but this poor fellow had a walker and 3 bags of groceries.
Oh,
Tried to get with that hump.
yeah,
And he's shaking and anyway, it was a nightmare, but I got him.
Yeah.
He did it. But I just thought that's so unfair because it, you know, I know there's a lot of college kids and they just take over it like it's not even there, but.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. And I think that's the right thing to do, is like either you contact them or let us know and we'll contact them.
Right,
Again, us means her,
right,
okay, we're just clarifying that. Whereas with areas where the city has either created a problem or has the ability to fix the problem.
Right.
We have a little more influence,
okay,
you know.
yeah.
And I think the example was last time was the St. Mary's College student who was walking down Second Line Hill to get to his volunteer job at the Humane Society
Right.
on the road. And I mean, that is a Trans Canada. And I'm not convinced that's a good solution, you know, so maybe that's something that Public Works could look at, right? So. Those kind of, Sandra, I think she took this to mean a little bit more than just snow removal. It could mean where we see a barrier,
That's.
right? And it could be like where we need a curb cut and we don't have a curb cut, or where a sidewalk is in very poor condition, or where we don't have a sidewalk, maybe we should have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, so that it's a little bit.
You're right.
And that was the way I read the resolution, and I thought that's a great resolution.
And that as well. So again, I'm new to the committee, so I'm not sure. I know that we do reviews of building like the Twin Patches recently, right? I don't know in the past if we've done a review of the whole community. To Don's point, you know, are there any other barriers, sidewalks and so forth that we as a committee should think about and discuss?
Right, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, Chair, Councillor Owens.
Yeah,
We have the curb, the press curbs, the curb cuts, may I use the short form. We've always had directly with the public works and those, I don't, we've not done a full-on soup to nuts review of every piece of city sidewalk. That's, it's been, our input has been either, I hate to use the word complaint, issue driven. I don't like to use the word complaint driven because it gives them,
yeah,
but if we spotted a problem historically, the person in Diane's role would usually be the liaison to bring attention. Or, I mean, one of the things was with the site plan, because we have statutory interest, as long as it's outside the building, the legislation gives us the right to give it. And I think we've used that effectively, but we haven't done the whole soup to nuts review in one. I don't recall.
That would be a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
I think the success that this committee has had, and we can ramp that up, is where there is a problem, we just notify Public Works. They will fix it.
I have a thought.
They have the ability to fix it.
And I don't know what our access is, but I'm registered with the DP, vulnerable persons register. I would imagine that a number of folks are, and that might be a way to find that, is there specific areas of concern, like the issue with the apartment buildings? That sounds like a dog's breakfast. And but we need to know thank you, Don, for knowing who to get a hold of to partially, to address it. But I don't like to use the word complaint driven, but that's how we've done it. It's been event driven, or also, I think we did see there is a city map holding the press curves. I think we've seen that once or twice, but as they've been added.
but okay, going back to your point about the vulnerable list.
Yeah.
So the people that are on the vulnerable list are there for different reasons. One, because they're physically challenged, right? So hypothetically, are you saying that if you look at that vulnerable list and you say, okay, I'm just making this up, 10 people that are physically challenged, that those sidewalks should definitely be plowed?
Just a thought.
Yeah.
As a solid way to begin, and it's a rationale. We're talking to someone outside of this body. It is that the budget department.
Yeah,
Finance, if you can bring them that by doing this particular will alleviate 4 or 5 concerns that always say, the more folks you can alleviate with one plow trip. It doesn't sound like a special, it's just like like the way,
yeah,
just trying to build a case for it.
yeah.
I don't know if they call it a business plan, but that's what
And if I was saying, and I'm glad you mentioned finance department budget, and I know Peter's going,
No,
but
Something
it's
is-
not, it's good discussion.
I paid my city.
Yeah.
Counselor, I paid my city tax bill last week. I
Yeah, no, I know.
am intimately familiar with
Yeah.
how this is financed.
Yeah,
Well,
we just look at, yeah,
That's it, man. And there's some newer curb cuts here that are awful, just in the way that. That last, like the new ones, like the, Mark Street and where you've got the, like, they're fantastic, they're wonderful, but there's a lot of curb cuts. On, the hub trail portion on the south side of Queen and that area, they're pretty bad just for a kid on a bike, let alone, or an adult on a bike, let alone, I think it was more of a craftsmanship. Piece and that it just, and then because it was so steep, now they're starting to break up and people are hitting them so hard.
and how do you know this? Are people calling you or are you experiencing
I'm
it
experienced.
yourself? Okay.
But Diane and I, we talked about this, so just on this resolution, I think it's good, we can support a little bit. First, I know with at our last meeting,
I don't know what word it is.
the active transportation folks, and that was something that came up, is there a way, like, we can measure the number of pedestrians on a sidewalk, right? So we know, granted, there might not be as many on that same sidewalk in the winter, if it's getting used in the summer, and we're not plowing it, so I think that was part of what we wanted WSP to look at for us, was what sort of criteria can we use to say, yes, it should be plowed or it shouldn't? And then Diana, we talked about this, so Steve Zupa in the planning office, he's a stats guy, and he thinks that we can maybe through census data, figure out where people with mobility issues reside in the city. We haven't worked that through yet, but that might be a bit more of an objective way to look at.
Will you also have access to the DVR? I'm just using that as an example that I know exists.
Yes, we could.
My apologies.
I think we could have
My
access.
apologies, Gary.
Sorry to jump in.
My thoughts on holding now, because I feel like I wanted to add to all of that. And as I'm working with clients who are deaf and blind, often seniors, I do work with a lot of people with a lot of different disabilities. So I'm trying to think of visually, hearing, using a walker, with a wheelchair, all those sorts of things, and trying to think of all the areas that I feel need improvement, because they are the majority of people that are walking, trying to access these areas. And then because of that, I also feel that the input should be from them to us to forward. Because, yeah, I was thinking of Queen Street, that bike trail, getting off the curb, it's awful, but that's just one area, and I'm sure there's so many other areas that people try to access. Try using a walker down a curb like that, that is leading to a fall, in my eyes. So I would love to try to gather the community's input for these areas of concern and really try to address those areas so they are safe for people. And then that being said, as I'm working with clients more in the community, I'm realizing that it's really unsafe for them to cross certain roads in areas where people with disabilities are more heavily populated, more apartment buildings. For example, I have a client moving to 55 Chapel area, and sometimes he will go out without myself, he'll go out by himself. Now he's going to be new to that area, and to try to cross Willow, access the grocery store, the bank, life, everything is dangerous for anybody. Given the fact that he's blind and deaf, but then again, if you have a walker, if you're just reduced mobility for any reason whatsoever, and you can't run across that road, it's so dangerous. So that's one example of a place that's heavily populated, and there needs to be safe crossing, but there's other areas as well. So I'm hoping we can address that.
That's right. I have a question, Trent.
What's that?
And maybe to, through you to Peter. Other communities, what have they done? Or what are best practices? Are there other communities that have, like, I don't want to say red flag or what's the proper term, but to have like a model, and to address your point too. Like, for instance, we have school zones. Everywhere in the world, there's a school zone. But do we have like we're looking for a concern zone or whatever that you call the zone, you know?
A handicap crossing.
There's something, you know, what,
I had asked that question to the active transportation consultant, right? Like, is there a general rule of thumb where you've got X number of pedestrians or this much density or, and they didn't really have an answer, but I don't know, like, I know it would be based upon obviously the number of vehicles on the road, the number of pedestrians, and then looking at the land uses around it. So you've got, let's take Pine Alley, which is probably one of our highest density areas of the community. And it's also, when you look at the stats, like the newcomers that are coming to Sault Ste. Marie, they're moving into that area. They may not have a car. So I think we know there's a high level of pedestrianism in that area, but there's not a high level of pedestrian facilities, whether it's, no sidewalk on the east side of Pine, no crossing on Willow. I don't know that there's a sidewalk on the west side of Willow, but not on the east side, I don't think. Or is there not even a sidewalk? There's a sidewalk that comes off of, then there's no driveway. So, I mean, these are things as a community changes and develops. I think this is the idea of the active transportation master plan is to increase pedestrian facilities.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's. I'm where this travel, just got the thought. Maybe the director, accessibility director for Ontario might have. We're looking for best practices or perhaps a numerical
Criteria.
a starting point, lack of a better.
Yeah.
Now, the one that changed, I have been long time so, now the facilities thing wouldn't have anything in that, even the update.
I think it's just building.
Okay, sorry, just thinking of places where we, or in use criteria, like when that first came out, they didn't include snow removal. Which, if you know the city of London, their snow removal is shut the city down, wait for 3 days, and it'll melt. I lived there for 2 years, it works perfectly well, but was not working to think great. No joke, that they literally shut this, if they have 2 snow plows, and if it goes beyond, they shut the city. University shuts down, and they wait till it melts. Which works really well, but would not work well here.
I can tell you what's in the design of public spaces standards. There is a part in there that has a requirement for an accessibility plan to have maintenance plan. So for emergency as well as ongoing maintenance. So snow falls into that, snow removal, clear pathways falls into that. Our plan doesn't yet contain that. We need to include that, so it's going to take, questions to Public Works to find out what is their minimum. It snows 3 inches and then they'll clear, and then how often do they, what is their standard for clearing? So it's not that we necessarily have to do anything different than we've done in the past, unless this committee agrees that the standard isn't working as far as accessibility goes.
and if hypothetically we include the vulnerability list. Hypothetically. But Carrie, I think you have a good point.
I have another concern, and I'm not sure where it falls, because we're not, in this case, I guess I'm not looking at disability, but I am looking at accessibility. So I do believe it's still our area. Last month, we had a presentation on, with the presentation that we had that stated we were going to be adding sidewalks to all the school zones. I don't remember when that project was slated to be completed. But that's still an area of concern with me because adults, although they may have disabilities or may be slower to cross the street, or children, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, don't have that safety knowledge. And so walking to school without a sidewalk is an accessibility concern for me, especially in areas where there is not enough room for a path to walk. Like Ontario Forest School is a great example because there's that 90-degree corner leading to the school where there's no sidewalk. And, you know, cars have gone off into the snowbank in the winter because they took the corner too fast. The children are walking around the corner. So I don't know if that can be included in this area or maybe a topic for this. It's a gray area. But it's a safety area and it is accessibility and.
I think there's two parts to this. If I may, just for a moment. I think there's two parts to this, and the one part is, what are the city standards for new development? And I think and that was the active transportation presentation we had with Justin last time, and he was talking about this, we're looking at some of these specific areas. You know, the city went through a long period where we didn't build sidewalks in new subdivisions, that was it. End of discussion, no sidewalks, no, you got a school to that, no sidewalks. And then they have since changed that standard. I believe in all residential areas, we now put a sidewalk on one side.
Yeah, like in some cases, you have a dead end cul-de-sac where at times they won't,
At times they won't,
but
but
otherwise, yes.
and then depending if it's a collective street or an Ontario street, you get sidewalks on both sides, right? Okay, so the city has already adjusted that standard, so hopefully we're not creating more problems. What we have to do is back up and look at what are the solutions to this, and you had asked the question like, when's this going to happen? Well, you know, the accessibility, the new accessibility strategy will be complete end of the year sometime, something like that. So, and then it will be approved by council. The budget to implement that is an ongoing, you know, that's up to council on a year-to-year basis to see what they want to spend on that kind of networking. But there's always those two parts. So like, let's not, like, I think the city has already, to a large extent, well, to some extent, addressed the standards moving forward. And we saw that with sidewalks, where they reduced the number of saw cuts now that they're putting in their new sidewalks. And the guy with the trowel used to be really aggressive. Trench across there. I think he was doing a good job, but now they're not digging little trenches across there on our new sidewalks. So that kind of thing. Any further improvements to that get implemented immediately. And if they're implemented on all future projects going forward, we have to make sure that where we have a problem, especially big problems, is that they're identified and they're addressed. And I mean, that's part of the role of this committee, right? This is what's one of the priorities for the committee, barrier removal. So when you see a barrier, let's speak up, let's see what we can do. And I think, Sandra, that's what your resolution was trying to get to, right?
Well, two things, is like, I was hoping that by October, we would have a list of, I call it red flags, that the whole committee agrees on. And this list should be given to Public Works before October, so they could have a good discussion among themselves and come back to us with any questions and any clarification. And that we as a committee and Public Works agree that these are the hot zones that need to be addressed in the upcoming winter months. And maybe also suggest we use the vulnerable list and identify those that are on the list that need to be hypothetically top priority or be considered for snow removal.
You had a cluster council, that was my thought. So
Yeah.
4 or 5, and this has happened.
Yeah.
I think it makes it easier to make a budgetary, to make a argument with
Yeah,
PWT, which, I mean, they do, I think they do a remarkable job
Yeah.
in general, but sometimes these detail specific things, you know, as we learn, as we develop. I mean, Diane's good news to hear that the accessibility plan now required to include things like the snow removal discussion, because this,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nuts and bolts thing that I think we should. I'm also wondering if we could put out a call to either a city press release or access from the website. Folks know if they have a particular concern. I know it's odd time to talk about snow removal, but 70 degrees outside, weather's lovely, but we do it now. You're not getting crisis calls when it's snowfall.
and we don't want to have one-offs, like to your point, the cluster idea makes perfect sense versus more one-offs, but if we see constant one area constantly a problem, then we should go and investigate and see if that makes sense.
But just a thought, because I know that that's why you're trying to use the information you have.
Yeah.
the census data as well is useful, but I'm just thinking the DPR may be more specific, just a thought.
It might be, information is collected, I guess, through the GIS system.
Yes.
That's part of it, so we may be able to get that. And then as far as, you know, a site on the website, there is two things on the city website. One is having to do with the new traffic and pedestrian concerns. I sent that link out.
I have.
That's okay.
City website, but it dawned on me that people do look at that, and it would be a way for the council to perhaps ask to our colleagues at some point that we're asking. I know other councils must get similar requests, frustrations. I can imagine some of the language will just, but if it would, people, I don't know if the general public knows that you have to be on their own. Like that's an insider's tip. But that list has to be ready by October.
Right.
See, that's something that I don't think the general public,
They don't, right.
I didn't know that until 4 minutes ago. So I mean, I should go.
And that may change, you know, it might be September.
But the council, the point is that there is a meet, that there is a meeting that goes ahead before any of the.
Right, and there's still no guarantees, again, you know, someone might say, I live on Upton Road, I want my sidewalk, well, but, sorry, it may not happen.
Yeah.
You know, we don't raise expectations, we just want to make sure that those that really need to have accessibility to the sidewalks are being heard.
But to Councilor, as I said, even the news that there is, I don't know how many members of the public realize that there's actually, as I said, that this is decided well before the first snow.
Yeah,
There's a list of sidewalks that get plowed and things move on and off that list on a yearly basis, yeah.
But that, Don, insider knowledge, public knowledge. You folks know how the municipality does its thing. I don't know, especially if that's known to the average resident. They would call their counselor and write, which is not always.
it's part of the job.
But if you can get, you get the information out ahead of time, you may not get as many irritated.
Yeah,
Don, as you said, the sidewalk policy had to be evolved. When the council realized that having no sidewalks was not working.
Not a good plan.
It didn't work. Hey,
Derek, go right.
I have a question for you to Peter. Those green strips on Northern Avenue, how would a wheelchair without tipping over go on those green things? If let's say they were doing a sidewalk and we had to use the walking lane, how would one wheelchair, like, you don't want to put leave it at a driveway so where would people get on the road if they had to utilize those painted green lanes?
Help me out here, the painted green lanes are those bike lanes?
That's what I'm hearing, the bike lane.
Those are the bike lanes.
Yes.
Cyclist lanes.
They're not all green, like green in spots.
Just, just on the other side of Green Northern, I think.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, like from, Dartford to Victor. And I think, well, I shouldn't say anything, but I just assumed that was where the bus stops.
Let me look at it. I can't visualize it.
And get back to foot.
Okay, it's just because I don't wanna like, if let's say that we're doing the sidewalk. I don't wanna get on the road and not have place safely to get on and off that walk lane.
Derek, can I clarify something with you on that? Are you talking about there's a bike lane and there's a sidewalk?
Yeah,
You should be on the sidewalk as a pedestrian.
okay, but what my question is, if they're doing the sidewalk,
if they're fixing it.
if they're fixing it,
Yes,
How would you?
so that's something that we don't do very well, is when there is some kind of interruption in pedestrian path of travel.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have public notices and ways for people to know what their alternative is. And we're honestly not very good at it.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. I don't wanna use the green lane all the time, but if I have to get on the road, I wanna be able to use the green strip for emergencies only. So that we're not bothering a contractor or cement mixer.
Right.
That's more about making a safe detour available in the event
Yeah.
of construction.
And that is part of the legislation that needs to be provided, that there has to be a safe alternative, and they need to make sure that it's very plain and understandable that it's a safe alternative. And we don't do that.
I think I've seen it drawn where they actually use wood, bring it level with the curb, and then they put a fence, and then it's a spot where you can.
Yeah, I've used that.
Is that contracted out or city when we fix it?
Could be either or, I think.
So in the contract that we have with a third party, it should be clearly stated in the contract. So that they are signing off to what we.
I suspect it is.
never-
Question is, are we doing it?
Yeah,
See, then, that's the only reason why we use those green lanes is for emergencies.
Yeah, I understand, Eric. Makes
So-
perfect sense.
Also how the outreach, because not everyone follows everything. Yeah.
That's a big one. And I'll see if I can make some headway on that and find some information. Okay, Derek?
Because the thing with my vision, even though everybody says I can see. My little turd gets caught in a rut and that's it, I'm down and out.
Yeah.
So what do we do what do we do in an emergency situation when we might have to use the green lane, which is the walking, pedestrian and bike lane, when there is a sidewalk tile out?
I think that may be the kind of thing that could be included in what your resolution is capturing there. Is everybody good at where we are at the moment? We have a mover and a seconder. Can we have a vote? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Jordan. And moving right along to our other item is the Accessibility Awareness Week. Dan, did you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yes, so National Accessibility Awareness Week is May 28th to June 3rd. And the start of that, so will be Monday, May 29th. I've asked the clerk's office if I can go to council and ask for a proclamation, as well as doing a brief presentation to council on accessibility. So I'll let you know when that happens. I'm pretty sure it will happen. So that's the beginning of the National Access Awareness Week. There's also an info fair, an information fair being co-hosted between the CCB group, which is Council of Canadians for Blind, and this office. There's going to be various different service providers in attendance, so we can all learn more about what's available in our community. And then there are a couple of online events. I didn't want to clog up everyone's email with links of things to register, but after our meeting today, I'll send you some links of some online events. One is through Rick Hansen, and that's on June 2nd. And the other one that does a good job is Ottawa, and that's also on May 31st, same time as our info fair. And also as part of National Access Awareness Week, I've been doing lots of community consultations on accessibility and trying to understand what we need to do better and especially what the gaps are. Because it's sometimes very difficult to know what you don't know. So I'm trying to dig up some of those as well. And so far there have been, I don't know, I think I've done 6 and there's probably another 4 or 5 to go as well.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Derek, go right ahead.
I just have a comment. Every time we go to council, can we give the clerk's office a heads up that they may need to go for a break? Because we have so many wheelchairs that have to be around those cameras. We're gonna need a break, like, just so that we're not having.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean, Derek. I mean, I understand that, yes, there is a path of travel that goes by the one camera on the corner.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if we were to do a break, then it would interfere with cameras. Because there's the one camera, and so like, if we give it a break, at least we're all getting around that camera. If they have to be lit.
Does council take breaks?
No.
Straight
So
through.
you would be in the proclamation, so you'd be right at the beginning of council. I don't know how many proclamations
Yeah.
there are that day, but you could potentially ask that it's. That you're first,
Yeah,
and then you wouldn't need a break, but then everybody would be leaving while the next proclamation.
See, that's what I mean, like,
but they just switch cameras at that point.
Yeah,
They can switch cameras. I think that's probably the solution.
okay, well, no,
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
so that we don't get that, can we give them a heads up? That, okay, we need to get out as soon as we're done
yeah.
the proclamation.
I'll give them a heads up there.
And I don't know if it's Shaw, Rogers, they're a division of Rogers.
Yeah, Sean, they don't have a person standing at the camera anymore. It's somebody else up in the box that is sort of fixed.
are they still up in the box or are they up in the truck?
They could be in Toronto. too.
That's true.
Yeah, I.
No, it's a box. I think they're in the box.
We need to clarify.
We can clarify that.
Craig, did you have something you wanted to add?
The thing about Derek, is we've had interesting. Oh, just a question, Diane, regarding community consultation staff. Do you have a top 5 gaps?
Oh, yeah, there's been a few surprises. So the first one that came up, and I can't believe I was so surprised by it, I shouldn't be, is adult change tables in family washrooms. Building code, current building code includes space for an adult change table in family washrooms, but it doesn't go so far as to actually include an adult change table in family washrooms.
Okay,
So there is this gap,
you have the space, but not the table.
not the table. So that is a huge gap, and they don't exist in our community. John Rhodes here in family change room for the pool has an adult change table and a ceiling track lift. I understand, I haven't seen it, that the Ermitinger Fleur National Historic Site has an adult change table there. And our new Northern Community Center has a beautiful family washroom that didn't have an adult change table yet. But since that's part of FAD, it will be coming.
Then is that in the plan?
But we need to expand that. We need to expand it a lot more. Bellevue Park being one key location. It should be in all of our community centers. And it's part of figuring out where are the key locations.
No, that's, again, we spend in for the new members of the committee, discussions about washrooms are, they're an evergreen, discussion, but That's back, so that was one, anything other than,
Hearing loops
oh, right.
is a gap. So for people that have, especially for people who have hearing aids, most have something called a T-coil installed in the hearing aid. Most have not been turned on, because the technology hasn't been widely available in the community. But there are certain places popping up, and one that I can think of off the top of my head is Rome's grocery store. You'll see in the checkout lines, you'll see something on the floor that has 2 feet prints and it says stand here for hearing loop. So there's certain checkouts that you can stand there if you have that technology, hearing aid, and it's turned on, you will be able to hear a discussion with the cashier.
And the one beside it, and beside it, and beside.
Oh, you hear all of them?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Because
it's,
you're both talking.
oh, no, so they need to work.
You get used to it, when you filter your other senses.
Oh,
But for a while, it was fun.
okay. All right, I don't,
Don't talk about anybody in line.
okay.
Good advice always.
No, so be careful, if you're walking the road, just be careful, you don't know who they're listening. I haven't been in rooms and done, but thank you, guys, no, that's, the change.
There's minimal, I think Giant Tiger now has it. City Council did have an FM system. I believe it's still there.
I believe so.
Someone were to ask, and a few churches. And that's about it.
That's
So the
interesting.
gap.
I never knew, this is great information. I mean, so you come in City Hall and want to pay your taxes, you want to talk to a staff member in the lobby that we're reconstructing, we should have something there. That would be.
Yeah,
Does SPAD speak to hearing loops?
they do.
They do.
They do actually.
Okay.
So our new Northern Community Center should have something there. It doesn't have to be hearing loops, but it has to have some form of assistive listening device. So it might be an FM system. It might be a hearing loop, but it has to be something.
Something.
And some of the places now have a speaker in the clear plastic or glass that they have. I was in the cancer clinic and there was a speaker, so the voice was amplified, which I don't know if there's a certain standard that they have to meet in terms of FM system versus amplification. I like the amplification system because it applies to all people who maybe couldn't afford a hearing aid and have a T-coil, or has a T-coil but doesn't know they do or how to turn it on, or doesn't have a hearing aid. So at least it provides that amplification for everyone.
For example, I knew what a T-code was, but I didn't know it had to be turned on, I thought it was automatic, it's not automatic on the system, you have to actually activate it, okay. Yeah, that might be, and since it's not been universally used yet, there's lots of folks in town with hearing aids, but don't.
And the technology is going towards Bluetooth also. So many people who have that T-coil technology don't use it.
Is there a standard that like people are moving towards? Or, because we seem to have.
My opinion or my just kidding. Well, Bluetooth is taking over because of the access, right? So now a hearing aid user can automatically connect with their cell phone and any other technology, their computer, their iPad, anything, and have that amplification right in their hearing aid. So for most hearing aid users, that has become the easiest way to provide amplification with technology. And then for those often seniors who don't use the technology, I guess it would be then a T-coil, but often it's difficult to know or remember reviews or change to T-coil. So I'm a fan of the T-coil and the loop system, but I also see it has limitations compared to, just generalized amplification.
Like all specialty programs, it's only available at home. It's only effective if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
Should we move on then to our old business? We have 3 matters on our old business. First is the tour of the Northern Community Center. There was a group of us. Derek was part of it. Carol, you were there. Diana, you were there. Wayne was there. Myself.
think that's it.
That's about it, okay. And Diane took extensive notes, went back and, visited the game. And then has since been speaking with, Rob Santa Maria, who is the manager of recreational facilities for us. And it's probably better if Diane gives you a short list. Diana just panicked over there when I said that. If Diane, if you could kind of summarize where we are on this.
Okay, so I did send out the notes that I sent to Rob Santa Maria for feedback on our tour of the Northern Community Center. Overall, it is a beautiful facility and it is very, very accessible. There were a very common omission are things like contrast, color contrast for railings, the stairs. There's supposed to be nosings on the stairs that go up to the second floor when you go in, and there were none, and I found that very surprising. But there were color contrast nosings on the stairs within the stands themselves. So perhaps that was something that just wasn't finished yet. Another couple of things that we came across. Actually, Derek really pointed out with the door actuators. There's beautiful actuator on the wall and it's a high-low, it's a bar. So it makes it very accessible for anyone of any height or reach to be able to use it. However, we all notice that you push the actuator and it's not the door in front of you that opens, but it's the door beside it. So when you think of when either in an emergency or when there's droves of people exiting after a game or something, you've got to navigate through and then go through the other door. So that was one that we suggested be changed if at all possible. And then there was a couple of things that are included in the FADs, and this is when I really started going through the FADs. So something that wasn't in the elevator that should be is the voice enunciation of what floor you're on. It actually says when there is only 2 floors that you shouldn't even need to push the button, that it should just automatically go to the second floor. You get in, you go there. If you get in on the second floor, it's taking you to the first floor, and it should announce what floor it's on. The adult change table wasn't there, and we didn't hear anything about an assistive listening device. Doesn't mean it's not there, it hasn't been installed. We just didn't hear anything about it. We didn't ask, we didn't hear.
Where would you put that assistive listening device? At the canteen? I'm trying to think of where it would be important.
I'm thinking for someone who's listening to the game, who's watching the game, listening to the game in particulars, wherever there is, I mean, quite possibly at the canteen, there should be something as well. Any of the customer service areas, there should be something.
Right.
I think in the case of arenas, I think the main areas are probably the seating area where most of the people will sit. You can watch the game if you have the vision to be able to see it. But if you can't hear, I mean, I don't know anyone that can hear over the speakers in an arena anyways. It's usually the sound is poor.
Unclear.
Very unclear, even if you have good hearing. So that would be important. So we don't know what exists. Another thing that is not in there that we asked for is mobility device charging station. There's really no cost to having one installed. So I'm sure that can be done fairly easy. And the last one is a process. So we noticed, and Derek pointed this out, is that there is a small cord in the bathrooms, in the accessible bathrooms. We don't know where that call goes to, nor what the process is. When that call comes in, someone has had a fall or something is happening in the bathroom and they need assistance. We don't know what the process is. So I just asked those questions, and I'm sure we'll hear back from their facility at some point soon.
Dan, and the process moving forward from here is like, just to summarize, we did have a lot of involvement. This committee had a lot of involvement with the design of the new Northern Community Center before they constructed it. Really happy with the number of things, including the visibility now for people in wheelchairs to watch the game is fantastic. Really, really good. As I say, went through it, found a number of problems, many of which can be easily corrected. And we were fortunate because we had Franco Pastori, who was the lead architect, went through on the tour with us. And like right away, he said, and he saw the stairs going up to the second floor, and it's the only set of stairs in the place that doesn't have the yellow nosing on it. And he said, right away, that's in the contract. They've got to come back and do that. And I know Don still had people working in the building while we were there. So there, we've identified a number of issues, many of which can be easily corrected. I think all of which can pretty easily be corrected. The next step, Dan, you're going to meet with Rob and his team.
I've sent our list off to them.
Right.
He's reviewing it with his team. I don't know who all is in the team, if that's Franco or, you know, other facility people. And then they will get back to me, and hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have some kind of follow-up on that.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile to have a meeting with Rob, just to kind of see where we're at on all of this. You know, because this committee has put a big effort into this, it'd be nice to know that we're so close to having a nice result. The other thing, and this is just top of mind, sorry, I shouldn't bring top of mind things up, but I will. When the community bus comes there to pick, or any bus comes there to pick somebody up, the parabus comes there to pick somebody up. Are we switching that? Like, how do we make people aware that, because it's always going to be old entrance, or it was going to be old entrance when we were there, and you can't see it. You know, like the entrance into the original building, doesn't look at the parking lot where the bus comes. Whereas the entrance that now connects the two buildings together, if you haven't been there, there's a 30-foot wide hall glass that connects the building with the, you know, the field house with the soccer field with the new arena. And it's a great spot to sit. Then you can see, here comes the parabus or the community bus, or your friend Bill's coming to pick you up or whatever. How do we make arrangements so that everybody knows we moved the entrance?
The canopy out there.
Yeah, there is canopy, isn't there? I think there's even a bench.
Why not a sign, main entrance? Well,
But I think the issue is we need to let the transit people know that that's what we're at.
There are other people that might want to get picked up, I'm gonna call the south entrance versus the north entrance.
Yeah,
Or is it more about like communicating on, I don't know.
I think we, like for people who are expecting to get picked up, if we could move to that new entrance, because it works so well.
Yeah.
It just works so well.
Essential.
Except for the door where you push the button and the door will there. Yeah, they'll fix that. Very
The
good.
parents did a presentation for the CPD group, and clients have also stated that now they have one generalized pickup and drop off area. So if the parabus now drops off at that main door, that's probably likely where they'll go
Perfect.
to be picked up. But we maybe should communicate to transit that that should be the door, because we have the seniors drop-in center there as well. And I'm sure people use that transit service for the senior drop-in center and are used to using the old entrance. So that might be, as long as transit is aware and can communicate to them, this is now where I'm picking you up.
Yeah.
I think it would be easier for them.
Down to the station mall comes to mind, that there are two spots, one is theater, and one of the wheel entrance. One of the two options, and when you book to go to the mall, you can, which one you choose, which one you prefer. Okay, because I've used both depending on pickup and all. The last stop being the LCBO store before the station, they don't have to carry the bottles.
Derek, go ahead.
Okay, all you have to do is when somebody's booking for somebody, just say, can I get dropped off at the front doors, the arena side? And they will accommodate you. And just say to them like, okay, can you put that as a drop off point in your computer system? And that's it.
Derek, that's a good point. We might wanna, like as a committee, address the parabus to find out their rules and regulations around this. Because I was told that they've now sort of changed to one location per, like two at the station mall and depending on where you're going. That is the pickup and drop off, and they won't allow other areas within the building because it's too confusing. That being said, some drivers are just, they're going out of their way to maybe do a different stop within a building just to make it easier for the person. But maybe we should get clarification around that as well. One stop, two stops within a building.
No, they have one stop. And that's it.
Right,
If we are all in agreement to say the arena side, then we just tell the dispatch, okay. And we talk to Christian Frost and say, okay, Christian, can we have people dropped off at the arena side? That's it.
But what if it's easier for, let's say, me to go to the other side?
The problem then comes is you've got different people being dropped off at different places and the driver doesn't know where to go.
and then the old entrance, you can't see if the bus is pulled up the way the door.
But it has to be accessible because nobody's needs are the same, right?
Right,
So you can say, use that as the main entrance, but they should be able to accommodate somebody, okay, if they need to be dropped off somewhere else, if it's easier.
Okay, but the
Because
thing,
then what's the point? There's no accessibility.
okay. Can I don't mean to, go ahead there. We did not create the rules of Paribus.
No.
The rules of Paribus is that they pick one door and one door only. Because what happens is when they play the where's Waldo with you, it's like where's Waldo? So unfortunately, until the powers that be decide that they're gonna have a community bus style pickup for Paribus, we are stuck with the one door pickup.
Are you talking about community bus or Paribus?
I'm talking about Paribus.
Paribus.
What they need to start doing is when people say, okay, we're at this store, they need to start running it like the community bus, and they won't do that.
Because when you order the Paribus, they ask you where you want to be brought and picked up, right?
Yeah, but they pick the entrance. We have no choice but to take the entrance that we.
I don't know, maybe they're just really good with me. They just,
so it depends on the driver. We were told, right, that some drivers will go out of their way if they're not busy and they have extra time to do a different stop maybe, but Derek, like Derek said, it's one stop, it's one location.
I've never had that problem ever.
Can I suggest that we are gonna have transit either in June or September, I'm not sure which one it's going to be, and that be one of our agenda items.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay. So we will get back to it on the Northern Community Center, though. I mean, really, that's a great project. The problems that are still there, I think, can be easily corrected. So we want to make sure they're easily corrected. Then the next item on our agenda here is the video relay interpreting services, which unfortunately I know nothing about, so it's over to you.
All right, so that's the program that we've put some money into a budget for an annual subscription for service. And this is the kind of service where an AFL interpreter is available on demand at key customer service areas. For example, use the John Rhodes Pool. We have someone come in and wants to find out about services when our pool swims and whatnot. If someone uses ASL interpreter to communicate, it can be very difficult because English is not a first language. ASL is a first language for someone who is deaf. So this is an on-demand, on a tablet that the pool area would have. You call up an ASL interpreter on there and it's on demand, it's instant service. That service is not yet up and running. They are still working on the logistics. They had it planned before COVID hit, but they're having a hard time bringing it back and getting it functional. So, what they do have is something called a quick access program. It could be someone who may be available immediately, but it may not be. It may be up to half an hour wait. So we can use that service for, say, meetings like this, and probably at our next meeting, I would like to try ASL interpreter as a trial for this group to see if this is something that can work for city council. Because that was another thing that I found out when I did a consultation with people who are deaf, that although having captions on our screen is wonderful and they're live captions, it is not, some people who are deaf, it is not their first language. ASL is their first language, and that is a legislative requirement. So that is a possibility to be able to get that way. Our ASL interpreters live in person are very busy. I think we have two in this community. So you can imagine how busy they are. So they aren't necessarily available to attend meetings. But I'm hopeful that if we can use them on the computer, signing, especially if we have a big camera that has a better angle lens, that could be something that could be used at council. So we'll give that a try next month.
And just a tidbit of information, ASL is not signed for Word. The language is actually changed. So instead of signing my name is Carrie, my name Carrie. So things can be backwards. So for them to read what is being said may not always be easily understood.
And then who's providing the service? Who is that?
It's through Canadian Hearing Services.
Okay, and there's a fee.
There is a fee for it, yes. We have a budgeted amount for ASL interpreters as well, an annual budgeted amount through the very local budget.
Okay.
With only the two of them run off their feet would be a better description. We had privileged Adam on as a member of the committee for a number of years, and she could no longer do it.
She's not an interpreter, the person that sat on the committee, but we do have two staff interpreters that do that job. Yeah, and virtual as well. They give someone to the hospital. They should have iPads there for that type of service as well.
Derek, did you have a comment?
Actually, with the closed captioning, could we see about getting a blue, maybe backgrounds, blue and white instead of the black? Because I see the letters, right, but it's the where you get, like, if you change it to blue, it might work better, like instead of the black screen. So the wording's okay, but the background that the wording's coming on is black.
Carl, did you have a?
Yeah, see, that's a problem too, because with vision loss, everybody sees different colors. And there are different colors. There's white on black, yellow on blue. You know, there's 3 or 4 different colors, white on blue, you know. So I don't know how that can be adjusted, because I would never be able to see white on blue. No, there's no way.
Me either.
Yeah,
Okay. No,
but then I know people that need white on black, okay? There's, I think, 4 different color ranges, but some devices you can switch it, like this machine here, I can switch the colors on. Okay, for whatever color I can see. I don't know how that can be.
I would suspect that people want, like, who are using this at home, can probably change the color. That's pretty basic, yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or the font size might matter also.
Even if, with me, even if the font was different, it would kind of blend in. I need really hard contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just brought that to you.
no, but that's a good point. That is,
It is a good
I
point,
don't
but I'm
know.
just gonna add in and please let me know if I missed something, is that the captions that are on the screen are for people who are perhaps not able to hear or hear as well, that they can see in live captioning what's being said.
right.
Now, for someone who has both a vision and a hearing disability, that's a whole different ballgame. And I'm not sure how we would accommodate that.
Well, I don't know, there are other devices also that you could use where the device would be in front of the person and you would be reading, and then you can change the font and color. Probably
Okay.
more individualized.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Fascinating, we learned today. Maybe.
And the last item under old business was our new civic center elevator. We had, probably here at our last meeting, we had a discussion on that. Did you want to just kind of let us know where we are at the moment on this?
Yeah, so there were some questions about the elevator. So I went through both the FAS document to pull out things that specifically pertain to elevators, as well as through the CNIB clearing our path. I think it's clearing our path. There's two documents, clearing our path, and the other one is, I forget the name of it. Anyways, I reference in it. I did send out what I sent to Carl because this is still prior to the actual final contract being awarded, that these things need to be included. So elevators in general, voice enunciation. We ask for better color contrast, wayfinding before or when they're putting in things that are underfoot for wayfinding for people that have vision disabilities, that there are tiles or pavement markings that can be included to help people find their way straight to the front door. Signage, braille and tactile buttons, the use of pictograms where possible, and that the FATS document covers braille and tactile raised characters. And then the last thing that came up, it has to do with emergency information or a stuck elevator. If someone who is deaf is on the elevator and the elevator gets stuck, right now, as far as I understand, the only way that they can communicate is through a speaker. And if someone is deaf, how does someone know? Someone knows that the elevator is stuck and that they're working on it, and they can stay in touch. So the idea of text display for emergency instructions is in the FATS document as well. And then we also talked about consideration for access to elevators after hours and on the weekends. So how is that going to be managed? Is that going to be managed through either a visual display or a speaker system to security? That however that's managed, that needs to be accessible as well.
That's going to become the only with the redesign of City Hall. And thank you, Derek, for reminding me about that last meeting. That becomes the principal entrance, and it needs to be fully operational. The gap we're basically blocked from. Let's not create a new barrier, folks.
That's right.
I understand that the city's the security audit is something I haven't. It's not something that 20 years ago we would have considered, but that's what the world has changed. And I always remember that John Robarts' autobiography. Wasn't it in 1968, Premier Ontario carries at security, but that, and years ago, my mom, so did a reception with Prime Minister at San Laurent. The only Mountie in the room was the local commander in his full dress reds. No bodyguards. And that was 1954. So I mean, see how the world has changed. I mean, now you go within two blocks of the Premier's house, there's nobody who cruise it. And it's a requirement we did not know, we did not plan for. But that elevator, Diane will have to keep a close close watch on that, because if something goes awry, not intentionally, but as we discovered with the stairs at the new arena, one thing gets missed, we basically blocked out City Hall, which should be the first time since that building went up.
And some things you can go back and fix, somewhere a little more difficult.
Yeah, like the elevator sounds a little, this sounds very technical. I'm not an expert at those things, but the specifics of the contract sound like. And something could easily be missed, because it's not the first time we've done it. I'm not suggesting we make just one thing, especially after hours, because we have had meetings in that building. It was a whole lot easier just to tap the guard on the shoulder on the way out when we need the door locked.
Dan, can you, and Peter, maybe follow up with Carl just to see where we are with all of that? It has been a month.
Did he confirm receipt of that email?
He did not
He
acknowledge.
didn't, okay.
Derek, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to our accessibility coordinator. Diane and I spoke about this on the phone about the fads and that the elevator, I wasn't dreaming. It's a new thing now, so anybody that gets a new elevator will get voice activated, whether you like it or not. But some elevators are still chosen because without the voice synthesized, it's a lot cheaper. So that's why I brought it to me, is because they need to start looking at elevators that have the voice things on it, so that they can make our city more accessible.
Yeah, just to clarify, Derek, that's in the FADS document, which is the city's standard. So any new elevators will have that. I don't know if it's part of building code. I don't 100% know that the answer to that, but it will be in our city buildings.
Okay. So no, but I thought I was just, because it was a fluke, because it was my building, right? And like, I go to the library or whatever, there's no voice. There's no elevators that have voice. So I thank you for looking into that, and glad I didn't go crazy on that, because.
I just got a question.
Go ahead, Derek.
Maybe a concern, I'm not sure, and maybe it was already said, but I need a visual on this. So the elevator at City Hall, what happens if it breaks? So I'm there and I want to get in, and the elevator's broken. What do I do? Am I going down around the back where we used to go in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully it doesn't break though. I mean, the city has maintenance contracts, and in all the years I worked at City Hall, I don't ever remember. Roger told me there was once where somebody got stuck in an elevator, but I don't ever remember anybody getting stuck in either elevators, like, because they're constantly under maintenance. And now that I've said that, like, freaking got stuck in the elevator right now.
Well, I was stuck in an elevator 2 weeks ago, and so I just
On the top of mind, eh?
it's on the top of my mind, yeah, if I'm there and I can't get up, because it is it's outside,
Yeah.
you know, so I don't know if the maintenance will be different or what. If I go there, let's say it's frozen or whatever, so I'm just gonna go around to the side there and open up those doors and then go down the hallway, but then if everything's, do I wait for a security guard or? I can be able to get to the elevator or?
I think you'd go in, see a security guard, and then they would bring you, like if you're stuck up, you would go in, probably do your business in City Hall, and then a security guard would bring you out through the west entrance.
Okay.
And my other comment, which I mentioned at the last meeting, is that, you know, you're going up to the elevator, and if it's not working, is there gonna be an outside button that someone can push and say, hey, the elevator's not working? Because not everyone's gonna be checking that elevator every day, right?
Or you're there after hours when the elevator door might be closed or something like that.
Exactly, so we should have some type of advice. Yeah,
Or counter, process something to not checking every day, perhaps could be put on someone's routine. I'm just thinking.
yeah, that's a good point.
Because I'm not, again, I use technology every day, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't always trust
Exactly.
it. Maybe
Yeah.
if that's, because I know that the west entrance had its flaws, but it worked for many decades.
Yeah.
Some simple is best. And I know this, maybe, I understand the necessity of the security arrangement, but
Be proactive.
let's anticipate. Let's hope, and I hope, and the pad stand and staff know what it is. We're not dealing with idiots. But this is the first time we've installed something like this, and first times with anything, always a little tricky.
There's gonna be hiccups and.
I suspect, and maybe we can confirm this with Carl, is that there will be security cameras on that
I
elevator.
would hope so.
And
We're all being
I mentioned that when we were meeting with them.
I thought,
There would
yeah.
be, but I don't remember if there was communications
Yeah, then you go to see it, but
device
they get back to you.
in case the elevator is closed for whatever reason, and somebody wants to get up into City Hall after hours.
Or even it's just hypothetically broken or something.
Okay, we will talk to Carl and get back to you on that. Moving right along, our barrier removal updates, we have a standing item on here, we just wanted to mention this to people. You know, where you, and I know we talked about this before, but quite simply, I'll be brief. Where you see, this would be a great spot for a bench, or this would be a great spot for some trees, because people, you know, it's a very bench, but it's really hot. Or it would be a good spot for a garbage can, because you're walking a dog, and now you've got no place to put the poop, right? And by the way, that actually works, you can call Public Works and they'll show up with a garbage can, within the day, I was so impressed by that, yes. But anyway, yes, I did, I trusted it, yeah, it works great, wonderful system.
John's retired. I'm.
But I mean, where do you feel there's an obvious spot? Tell Diane, we'll get in contact with Public Works, they do have budgets for these kind of things. Particularly planting trees, they have a planting tree budget, which is a considerable budget. And that's what they're looking for, it's like, if we don't speak up, they don't know that there's an opportunity there to go and make something better. It's like, I remember a discussion I had years ago with a guy from the PUC about all, everybody complains because the streetlights are off. But nobody picks up the phone to call them, because if you call them within 24 hours, they'll fix that one. You know, but so we're in that same boat, so if you see an opportunity, let somebody know, we'll do something for it. Fair enough? And the other thing that's on a very removal updates is our Blind Square app, which Carol has been tremendously involved with. Ben, did you want to speak on this, or did you want to?
I think Carol knows a lot more about it than I do. Blind Square, I'm happy to say that is probably ready for release. And I wanted to point out this app is free. And you don't have to have vision loss to use it, anybody can use it. And if you turn it on, it's going to tell you where all your streets are and the bus stops. So you're not going to get lost. I did find a few things that needed to be tweaked. A few more spots I had big concerns about, and they've all been adjusted. I did an awful lot of walking. I feel healthy but tired. And but it is ready. And on my travels, I've seen other things that you know, I pointed out, not just with this app, but for, you know, accessibility things. But I encourage anybody to download it. It's called the Blind Square Event. Make sure you put event in there because it's free, okay? And try it out for a day. Just walk down the street. It'll tell you what street you are on. It's going to tell you where the bus stop is. It's going to tell you if there's a garbage can there, if there's a bus shelter. And I also want to point out that you can save certain stops as a favorite. Now, when you save it as a favorite, myself, I customize my own. So I put my house as a favorite. So, and then I can tweak it a little bit. So as I'm walking and I'm getting close to my house, it's going to say my address 15 feet away. The closer, because I set it at 15 feet. So the closer I get, it'll say my address 10 feet away. My address 2 feet away. When I get there, it's ding, 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 you're home. Okay. So if you've got a doctor, a special doctor, or a school, or a favorite bus stop, or bus terminal, wherever, okay? You can set that as a favorite on this app. And this way here, you can just pay attention to your favorites if you want to. You don't have to pay attention to all this other stuff, and the closer you get, it's gonna guide you right to it. So it's an excellent path, and I think it's very beneficial. In fact, it has saved me once. Sometimes I get carried away when I'm walking and I'm yakking on the phone, and I think, I don't know if I told you guys this already, but I got disoriented. So I had to turn off my phone, say goodbye, and I turned on the app, and it guided me and told me exactly where I was. And I was able, and I had ended up turning myself totally around and walked almost back to where I started out from. And then I knew exactly where I was because it tells me the street and it told me what bus stop I was at. So, I think it's fabulous. I really do.
And I think we need to recognize that Carol did a ton of work on that.
Yeah.
Definitely volunteer of the year right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, go ahead.
There's one question, Carol, to you. When the app becomes over, what outreach are you for, the manufacturing planning now? Your community may know about it, but generally, so the community at large, would there be something that, I mean, a link on the city's webpage comes to mind, or something that we could help disseminate the information? Because one of the things I want to always like to consider is information shared here should go beyond here. Am I making? Do you know what?
Does Caitlin, like Caitlin Provision Rehab, is she aware of this so that she
Yeah.
can share with her clients and?
CNIB, well, it was CNIB Frontier that I was working with.
Right.
To set this up, okay? And now that I've tested it, make sure it's accurate, now it'll be a release,
Gotcha.
okay? And then after that, it'll be, but see, I had done a media on the radio with CBC, and it was also on the news last year when they only had 2 routes and I tested them, okay? So you can Google it, it's online or whatever. And now they put it, and because it was successful, the pilot, okay, they put it on all the routes now. Okay, and that's what I've been testing is all the routes. And now that I know that it's okay, a couple months ago, I felt it was not ready to be released because it was not safe.
Gotcha.
Okay. Some of the beefs were telling you the bus stop was in the middle of the road, and to me, that's not safe.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had to do all the routes, which I'm glad I did because I did come across 3 other ones that were in the middle of the
Yeah,
road.
they need a little, everything needs tweaking. So we
Yeah.
had the question about
Smooth now.
that, once that information, like,
Well, they have it at the accessibility week, the
Wellness.
wellness fair.
They should mention that. But see, I don't know. I have to talk to Marianne from Frontier to see if it's okay. Does it have to be released through transit first?
That was my understanding, was the transit was going to do a report to council on this, basically as an information.
Okay.
report.
Yeah,
And then it would cover at the news meeting, but we can certainly check with our corporate communication people with Tesla to see
where that's.
What-
And that's the thing, because
what
what's done,
information can get out.
Carol, what was done a year ago.
that was the beginning report. I just finished it.
No, that's what I mean, that information would be a little stale, and I'm thinking if we get another burst, folks could use it, like, it sounds to me to be quite useful, it's just, I'm saying, that one of the things we gotta do is make sure that information gets to the broadest possible members of the community, because I think most folks with vision impairments carry carry a cell phones, the technology is there, but if you don't know it's there, you know, and building that information based on, I mean, yeah, there's a certain protocol to making sure things are released correctly, just making sure we've done it.
Yeah, I really think maybe the way to go here then if you could touch base with, Tabitha
Yeah.
in public communication.
Sounds-
Because I mean, she can like call the news media and get a story on it. Like I know about, that's how that works. So I mean, and this is the kind of thing that they're gonna wanna cover.
Because I mean, Don, it sounds to me like a wonderful idea, but people don't know the tools there.
Yeah.
And Carol said it's taken a while to debug it, I think is.
Yeah.
Is it technical term? I don't think so.
Yeah, but they didn't wanna release it because we knew there were problems with it.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. You don't, let's,
Now people are feeling comfortable.
I can imagine to be sort of developed, sort of had a small farm animal, they're ready to go.
Okay, enough on that? Anything else on that?
Yeah, I think we have a letter of support that will be going out for that. And it just says, I think there's a quote from you, Carol. Saying exactly that, how well it worked and how that can save you a lot of frustration in wayfinding. It comes from the chair and the committee, so I think we need to have a vote on that.
Certainly, can we have a resolution requesting that a letter be sent to city council on behalf of the committee indicating their support and thanks for the development of Lion Square event.
Event.
Lion Square. Carl, did you want to move that?
Sure, yes.
Thank you very much.
I'll second it.
And Derek will second.
Hey, did you mention that there might be a report going to council from transit?
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, do we know the timing of that or?
I think it's next meeting, which is,
Once.
29th.
it is the 29th, so that's the same one we will be at, yeah.
Okay, and then we can maybe try and do a press release. Find it.
It works
The
well.
release of the agenda, right? Maybe
Yeah.
that weekend.
It works well because that's accessibility.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
good timing.
Yeah,
There you go.
very good.
So,
The only other matter that we need to spend some time on today, I think, is site plan. We have a site plan subcommittee. That committee was established with Dan Jennings as the chair, who has since resigned. And with Carol, Diana, Denise Elliott, who many of you know, used to be on the committee, is resigning from the committee, but she is on our site plan subcommittee. And myself with great support from Diane. We also had great support from Tony Marie, who is no longer with us. She's moved over to the building department. Tony Marie was the staff person that handled site plan approvals for the city. Did a great job and was a good friend of this committee. And, you know, congratulations to her for moving on with her career. Peter, do we know who is there a replacement for Tony Marie yet? Is that Steve?
Not at the moment. So right now, it's a combination of Steph on this particular plan. So Steph handling a lot of the admin side and then Nicholas Teeny is the planner that's on the spot.
So it's Nicholas.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Derek, you had a question?
I was gonna say that if you need somebody to put their name forward, I would do it.
Perfect,
Cheryl Rice.
because we were getting there. That's great. I don't know if we need a resolution to point Derek to the committee. We just,
Is everybody in agreement with that? Because I
I see,
I agree.
I see the need and I also,
we need you.
I suspect all the people in this committee are out and about as much as Carol or. We do more around town than the rest of us combined, I think.
okay, so, no, normally we have to take paper, go around the table. And I'm just trying to see, let's try and say,
Can we just have the minutes indicate that the committee requested that Derek or agreed that Derek shall serve as a replacement for Dan on the committee?
Great.
And everybody agrees with that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Aye.
And just sort of for the benefit of the committee, the way this works is when we're dealing with private sector projects that come to the city that require a site plan approval, it goes to the site plan committee. Generally doesn't go to the big committee. If it's a municipal project, like the new,
Like the arena.
The new, I have trouble with, I keep calling it the West End Community Center, but it's not, it's the Northern Community Center, which is located in West End. Then it comes to the committee as a whole for discussion. And we can show you, we can have the pictures from the finished restaurant, the new finished restaurant project. Maybe we can just go through this real quick for the benefit of the committee.
Let's see, you know what, I'm not sure if I saved that to my desktop. Sure. That was actually for Carol and Diane's use. I just need to go into my files and find that. Thanks, Kathy.
How are you doing that? Got it. Joe, good? Feel free to wave if you have a comment or question at any time.
Yeah. This is really hard to do from this.
Yeah.
point. Wow. No. Or did I? Oh.
And knowing, I'm not worried about the changing, worried about knowing the waters are printed off.
I don't know that I have access to. Okay, to my drives here. Because it's right there, but it's just not opening up.
Oh, no, I just, first one.
Just. It's in that file.
That's the person that came to me, yeah.
No, thanks.
The what? Yes, for sure. Others are questions release. Don't know if we want to add that.
Sorry, folks.
But that's okay, maybe we can just discuss this for a bit. The finished restaurant has a nursing home facility now that is quite old. It has about 60 residents in it. It does not meet modern standards. The decision was made, rather than trying to renovate that space, is to build a new facility. And that funding has been approved. I was talking to a developer last week and he mentioned that he anticipates that the contract for this will be let in August. What has happened is with the budgets all over, of course, nothing fits anymore. So the province did go back and increase the budget for this project as they did for all the other nursing homes that were under consideration across the province. So this is a new nursing home. It will be a brand new facility. It will be attached to the facilities that are there now. The Finished Restaurant facility will not be a standalone building. It will be located where, for those of you who are familiar with the site, they built a new 6, 7, or 8-story building a few years ago towards the back, which is basically an apartment building, but people in there can utilize the services of the Finished Restaurant. It's off the driveway that goes into there. So when you come off of North Street and you look to the right, you see the Wayton School. You look to the left, you will see a big gravel parking lot. It will be on that big gravel parking lot. They provided us with detailed drawings. We had a really good meeting, had an opportunity to go through it in some detail. And just to kind of complete the sort of introduction of this, the space where the nursing home is now will be renovated into apartments for additional residents, but will not meet the nursing home standards. So it will not be part of a licensed nursing home like the Davie Home is a nursing home or Tender Care is a nursing home. The new facility, however, will be. It will be that same level of care. We looked at the site plan. We had two basically comments, one on the outside of the building and another one about a landscape area that they had proposed. There's some difficulty with the, because they want to use an existing entrance, which meant that although they were providing lots of accessible parking, it was difficult. It was a bit of a hike to get there. Let's put it that way. And the other half to it was that they had put the accessible, they had divided the new building from the accessible parking with the main driveway. So, everyone who had parked their vehicle and was getting out of their vehicle had to cross in front of a driveway lane in order to get to a safe sidewalk so they could get into the building. We've asked them to review that. That may not be possible under the building code because of the fire regulations that go with nursing homes. But we have asked them to look at that. There is an interesting, or we raised an interesting point, which is we don't have a particular design for accessible barrier-free paving on an angle. Which is kind of interesting, but that's what we don't. So we had asked them to look at that. The other thing we asked them to look at was when you go in and you go up to the second floor, and you go out on the second floor, they have a very large landscaped courtyard, which is very nice. And that landscaped courtyard has a variety of ramps, which as far as we can figure out, don't actually go anywhere. They go up, they go down. And I know from a landscape design viewpoint, one of the ways you create interest in the site is by changing the elevation. So they have some raised areas and they have some lower areas. But to make sure that it's accessible, they were using a lot of space for ramps. And I'm not sure if that was really useful. Maybe they could like remove a ramp or two, not have such a change in grade, because I mean, the ideal thing from an accessible viewpoint, as it's been explained to me by numerous people, is don't have ramps at all, just all flat, and everybody can go everywhere, and instead use that space to put in some other features. So that we suggested that. The other thing that they had done was, because they are using it as an access in case of emergency, they had a ramp that goes down to basically the sidewalk inside. And our question was, rather than doing that inside the courtyard, could we do it outside the courtyard? Because they appear to have lots of room to do that. So those were the kind of comments that we made back to them. I haven't heard back yet. I don't think that project's been finalized yet. That they're still working on this. But that's kind of the sort of thing that the site plan committee puts at.
Did they say anything about walkways connecting the four buildings so that people can, because I know the new apartment building, people have to walk to Pocatello, but there's really no sidewalk. And that is a thoroughway, right? That's a road.
That's
So
amazing.
to that building. And hypothetically, like at Collegiate Heights, there is a pathway all around the building that my deafblind client uses every day to walk because it's the safest place to walk. He's not crossing a road. But here we do have people accessing the different buildings. So I was wondering if there was a way to.
There is an internal connection. There's a central lobby
Right.
this is part of what they've tried to do, is they've tried to keep basically an existing lobby so that you'll be able to walk inside.
To the new, even to the new building part at the back and then the first apartment building.
Not the apartment, but this new part, think of it as an addition onto the existing complex.
Assisted living and retirement living, but people from the apartment buildings access that main unit, Pocatello for pacemaker clinics, or they'll go to bingo. So the two apartment buildings on either end do access that main building, but I don't feel that it's a safe access or an easy access for someone with a walker, because it's just like a gravel side of the road.
That's a good point. We can bring that forward. We just looked at like
Within, yeah.
what's proposed as the new construction right now, and it is attached.
Mhm.
It's all, and I understand why they've got the front door where it is, because they've got a security concern. They want to keep track of who's coming and going. Good point. We're all fine with that. But the downside is the accessible parking is a bit of a hike. I guess if you get there first, the first parking space is pretty good, but if you're the 10th person there, it's not so high. So that's the kind of thing that committee looks at. And Dirk, we're happy to have you join our committee.
Okay. That project has been on, because for the duration, I lived at the go to the new building for a number of years. And that project has been on the hook for, I don't know how. It has been 3 or 4 different iterations, announcements, counter announcements. It got buried in Toronto. for reasons that had to do with the administration where board chair was temporary deputy was. Never a good plan to want to borrow, take government money. It's sad. So I'm pleased it's got this far. And the point about the department buildings not being connected, you know, I walked with Cody to the main, there is no sidewalk.
There.
Yeah.
Or you walk on the road and you trust your neighbors won't run you over. And depending on, that only works in the summer months. Like I tell you, winter months, it really doesn't. I didn't walk over the mountain. But it is something that, bless their hearts, they do really well, but sometimes they miss things that they hadn't anticipated. A lot of wonderful group of people, but sometimes the board doesn't. The board members all tend to be younger. They're the children and grandchildren of folks in the building. They don't often see. Sometimes they've had to be reminded about things they didn't see. Sometimes gentle works better than loud. Just, but sometimes they hadn't thought about moving around too much. Because I've had that conversation with the board. Hadn't, you can sort of go, the light bulb goes on over, you can see it and you remind them, oops, literally hadn't thought of it.
And that's the key, is we want to remind people before getting built.
Yeah, when something, Don, as you said, when something is done on a diagram, it's easy fix it on AutoCAD. Once the ramp's up,
Then it's fine.
City Hall front entrance, present one, classic example that we're now addressing. But I know, yeah, those plans have been changed. I saw 4 versions of it in 2 years. So I bet it's probably version number 8. Bless their hearts, because it also depends on what they can fundraise. Well, they've been through. We need the beds. That's the thing, is that because it's probably the most heavily subscribed to the retirement homes. And I know they, because there are people in these living who the staff kept there because they need more care than they can officially get. They've been skirting some rules for quite some time. But they don't like to throw people out.
But we'll see. I was told that they're gonna tender the project for construction in August, so we'll see. See what happens.
Yeah.
Diane, is there anything else that we shouldn't be discussing that you want to add?
Think so.
Okay.
Did I miss anything? Are you
I
giving
don't
me a
think-
prompt?
No, I'm not giving you a prompt. I don't think so.
Okay, good.
We do have a meeting in June, and then the practice of this committee has been to take July and August off. So we will see everyone in June. That's great. Thank you very much for coming. Jordan, thank you for joining us. That's great. Does anybody have any last words that they feel they'd like to share?
Is there the ability for the site plan? We may have some site plans that come in that may need attention over July or probably July.
Yeah,
Might be June, but
that's not an issue.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
not an issue for our committee. It's a small committee. We can leave it for others.
We're traditionally, the subcommittees that continue. And the committee can be called together at the call of the chair if there is an emergency need, but generally speaking, summer months, there hasn't been need. I know at first we would continue to make right the way through that we've developed this practice because people we exhausted folks.
You know what, that's a really good point though, because, and Carol, maybe you and Diana could stay for a minute and we can decide, we do have another matter coming up that we're gonna have to meet on.
Okay.
And we can do that, pick a time that's convenient with everybody, and then we can pick with Derek and Siri if that's good with them. We'll go ahead.
Want to know what's going on with the website?
The website?
Yeah.
We don't have any information on that yet. As far as I understand, the request for proposals hasn't gone out.
or hasn't been prepared, right? My understanding is that Diane's part of, you'll be part of the team that has the RFP. That designs the RFP sort of, and then reviews the proposals that come in, and Diane will be on that committee.
No, so no news at this point yet.
Okay.
Peter, you're always welcome to join us at our set time review committees too.
Yeah.
I want to send
Maybe send Nicholas.
Nicholas, is it
Yeah.
Nicholas or Nick? Nicholas?
Nicholas, or he goes by both.
He's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that might be helpful, especially early on, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Parties.
And I think too, like, there's a certain obligation, like, you have sent comments in, and I think you're gonna see comments back, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
that's a
kind
bit
of
of a,
my connection.
bit of a back and forth, so
Yeah.
you might not be done with that one yet.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that the expansion of cross motors is the next one we need to deal with too, and I think that's coming fairly soon. Yes.
Couple of housing ones too, that Carol is looking at doing, 2 more stories. Now, that's the key, for all the housing
Make it
projects.
bigger than.
So all of the projects that, we were involved in, they're literally coming back with 2 more floors on it.
If they can get funding for that, God bless them.
Yeah, well, I think that's what's happening, is CMHC is looking at their numbers and saying it doesn't meet the pro forma or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
if
you-
you add more units, it does.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hope to see you all again next month. Feel free to contact us, being Diana, anytime.
Thanks, Jordan.